Hello, everyone. My name is Makisa, and I'm a mental health as well as marriage and family counselor. On this channel, you will receive tips on how to establish and maintain overall mental health and well-being, foster healthy relationships, as well as promote self-development. If you are new here, welcome. I'm glad you can join me. And to my current subscribers, thank you for your support. Today's focus is on grief and loss. No matter who you are or where you're from, at some point in your life, you will experience grief and loss. Grief is universal. Grief and loss can occur with or without prior notice. When loss happens, it can have a profound impact on your thoughts, your behaviors, your feelings, and how you navigate your day-to-day life. It can also have a major impact on your decision making. When most people think of loss, the first thing they think of is the death of someone. But loss encompasses so much more than that. Loss not only includes the death of someone, it can be loss of your job, your relationship, divorce, loss of good health, or a major medical diagnosis, loss of your pet, your quality of life, your home, and the list can go on. Any significant change in your life or disruption in your life can create feelings of loss. Grief is not the same for everyone. It's different from person to person. The time frame with which one works through grief is different from individual to individual. When someone experiences grief, loss includes what you're feeling on the inside. Grief includes those thoughts and feelings, which it can include feeling empty, anxiety, panic, loneliness, despair, pain, etc. Grief is the internal meaning given to the experience of loss. Mourning is your outward expression of how you deal and manage your grief. Grief is unique to you. There is no script on how to do grief. I hear oftentimes, people say, if this happens, I would have done this. Or if I experienced that, this is how I would have responded. But let me tell you something. You don't know how you're going to respond to a major change in your life. You don't know how you're going to respond to loss until it happens to you. So one thing is, we have to be mindful of telling others how to do grief and how, to do their loss. It is unique from person to person. I want to talk about the stages of grief, and there are 7 stages. When someone has experienced loss, and again, it can be any type of loss, and they're grieving, your emotions can be all over the place. You can feel one way today, and then the next day you feel something completely different. So it can feel like an emotional roller coaster in terms of your emotions, and just really not knowing, how to respond or where do I go from here? How do I deal with this? And so I want to talk about the 7 stages of grief. The first one is shock and denial. And that's just feelings of numbness and of disbelief. So I can't believe that this is happening to me. Oh, I can't believe this person is gone. So really being in shock and having a hard time just really digesting that the loss has occurred in the first place. The next stage is pain and guilt. And that includes those intense overall emotions that may come up and that may be difficult to manage. You may feel like the loss is just unbearable and it's just too much to bear. You may also feel that you're making other people's lives difficult because of what you're going through and because of your grief and your loss. You may be needy. Your feelings may be all over the place. And again, you may be having a hard time struggling with how you're making other people feel as you navigate through your loss. The next stage is anger and bargaining. So you may lash out at others, take your anger out on others that has nothing to do, with the loss that you experience. You may bargain with God if you believe in God or whoever your higher power is. You may bargain with God. I'll only do this if this happens. Maybe this will happen if I just do this one thing. Or God, I'll do anything if you just relieve me from these feelings and what I'm going through right now. So that's an example of bargaining. In terms of anger, you may have a short fuse and you may have a hard time regulating your emotions. The next stage is depression and loneliness. So during this stage, you may isolate from others, not really wanting to be bothered, not communicating as much or not connecting with others as you were doing before you experienced your loss. The activities that you're used to engaging in, you may not have a desire or interest to do those activities anymore. You may not want to get out of bed. You may not be able to do your ADLs or activities of daily living as you were doing them before the loss occurred. The next stage is called upward turn. And during this stage, the intense emotions that you previously had, like anger, the intense painful feelings, during this stage, those feelings may tend to subside or be less intense. And you may not even notice that you're not feeling them as much, or they're not having as much impact on you as they were having before. During this stage, you may also feel more a sense of calm and relaxation. During the upward turn stage, you are more able to experience positive emotions. The next stage is reconstruction, recovery, and working through. During this stage, you are able to put the pieces of your life back together, step by step, taking it one day at a time. You have a sense of, I can move forward in spite of my loss. The last stage is acceptance and hope. This stage is very, very gradual. It's slowly processing your loss and coming to a place of accepting that if it was the death of someone, that person is no longer here. Or was another type of loss, that entity or thing that you had before is no longer with you, it's no longer here. And just gradually and slowly coming to a place of acceptance. Being able to move forward and looking forward to the future. One thing to keep in mind with the stages is that you do not go through stages in a linear fashion. So in other words, you don't go through the stages in the exact order that they appear. You may vacillate from one stage into another stage and then back to a previous stage. There is no time frame regarding how long you should remain in each stage. It differs from person to person. It's also possible to skip a stage. So not everyone may experience each stage. You don't know how you're going to deal with your loss until it happens to you. And so you don't know what that grieving process is going to look like until the loss happens to you. If you find that you are struggling, you're having a really, really hard time coping with the loss and moving forward, you're just really stuck and there's no movement. This may be a sign that you are experiencing what we call complicated grief or clinical depression. Keep in mind it's not your fault. These things sometimes happen, and it's just a sign that more help may be needed. Some key signs to look for that you are experiencing complicated grief or clinical depression with regards to the loss includes productivity, so decreased productivity at work, decreased ability to complete your self-care tasks, having difficulty completing day-to-day tasks or handling your normal day-to-day routines, feeling like you no longer have a sense of purpose, and surrounding yourself with constant reminders of the loss, and just an overall inability to accept the loss. So these are just some key signs that you may be struggling. If you find yourself experiencing any of these key symptoms, please don't be afraid to ask for help. Again, You don't know how you're going to deal with loss until it happens to you. And one of the things to avoid is, blaming yourself for the difficulty that you may have with struggling with the loss. Seeking help can help you work through feeling stuck or the difficulty moving forward. So different resources to help you cope with loss and to help you grieve can include counseling, whether it's online or in person. Another resource is attending a grief support group. Support groups are very beneficial because it's easier to navigate grief. And when you're struggling, when you are surrounded with someone or people that may have had similar experiences such as yourself, someone who can relate to what you're feeling and what you're going through and who understands. When you are surrounded with others, such as in a grief support group, it normalizes what you're feeling and what you're experiencing. And it makes it easier to share and open up. Experiencing grief and loss is a part of life. Dealing with loss and grieving can be very overwhelming and it can be very challenging. Grief is a process. It takes time. One day at a time, one foot in front of the other. And navigating that process is different from person to person. It's important to lean on others that you trust and allow them to support you as you work through your loss. It's essential that you allow yourself the time and the space to maneuver and work through your loss in order for you to be able to move forward. With time, acceptance means that in spite of your loss, you're able to move forward. You're able to create a new normal for your life, and you're able to look forward to the future and the possibilities. That's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching.